Have you ever noticed how certain people drain your energy and leave you feeling depleted, no matter how brief the interaction? Do you sometimes wonder why your mood shifts dramatically after spending time with specific individuals? Have you found yourself losing focus on your personal growth because of the company you keep? Today, we will delve into the 9 types of people that Stoicism warns us to be cautious of. The ancient Stoics understood a fundamental truth about human nature, that we are profoundly influenced by those around us. As Seneca wisely put it, associate with people who make you better, welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus advised, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. You have likely heard that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This wisdom is not just a modern self-help concept, but is deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy. Let us examine these 9 types of people who can derail your progress toward a virtuous, tranquil life, and how to handle these relationships with wisdom and dignity. Lesson number 1: the complainer. We all know someone who seems to find fault in everything. The weather is too hot or too cold, their job is unbearable. The service at restaurants is always disappointing. Their conversations are filled with grievances rather than gratitude. You might think, I can simply ignore them, but consistent exposure to such negativity has a subtle yet profound impact on your mental state. It is like a slow leak in your emotional reservoir, gradually depleting your energy and optimism. Consider a colleague who transforms every meeting into a complaint session. The project deadline is unreasonable, the client is difficult, the resources are inadequate. Over time, you may notice your own enthusiasm waning, your focus shifting from solutions to problems. How does Stoicism guide us in dealing with complainers? First, limit your exposure when possible. If unavoidable, practice mental distancing. When they begin their litany of complaints, imagine their words as passing clouds, unable to disturb the mountain of your inner tranquility. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This perspective allows you to maintain your equanimity, even in the presence of chronic negativity. Another effective strategy is to gently steer conversations toward solutions. When they complain about a situation, respond with, "What do you think could improve this?" This subtle redirection can transform unproductive complaints into constructive dialogue. Lesson number 2: the drama magnet. Imagine your life as a ship sailing through calm waters. Suddenly, you encounter a whirlpool, the drama magnet. This person exists in a perpetual state of crisis. The relationships are tumultuous, their life decisions erratic, and their emotional state constantly in flux. What makes drama magnets particularly challenging is their ability to pull others into their chaos. You might initially be drawn to their intensity, mistaking it for passion or depth. However, you soon realize that their drama is contagious and exhausting. For example, a friend who has frequent conflicts with others in your social circle. Today they are not speaking to Sarah, tomorrow it is Thomas. They seek your counsel and support, but the cycle never ends. Before long, you find yourself entangled in disputes that were never yours to begin with. A practical Stoic approach is to practice reflective listening without getting involved. When they describe their latest crisis, echo their feelings back to them. I understand you feel betrayed by what Sarah said. This validates their emotions without pulling you into the conflict. Another strategy is to become selectively unavailable. Create boundaries around your time and energy. As Seneca advised, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Do not allow someone else's perpetual drama to disrupt your tranquility. Remember, compassion does not require participation. You can offer understanding without joining their chaotic narrative. Lesson number 3. The naysayer. Picture yourself as an artist working on a canvas. Each brushstroke adds color and life to your vision. Then enters the naysayer, who immediately begins critiquing your work. The blue is too bold, the composition unbalanced, the concept derivative. Naysayers specialize in doubt. Whatever your aspirations or ideas, they are quick to highlight potential failures and reasons why you should not proceed. Their feedback is not constructive criticism aimed at improvement, but rather persistent negativity that stifles creativity and ambition. Imagine sharing your excitement about a career change with a naysayer. You have researched the field, spoken with professionals, and perhaps taken preliminary courses. The naysayer responds with, "The market is oversaturated, you lack the right qualifications." The failure rate is high. Their doubts begin to echo in your mind, diminishing your confidence and enthusiasm. How can you protect your aspirations from the naysayer's shadow? One effective method is to ask them for specific advice rather than simply sharing your plans. By positioning them as advisors rather than critics, you may receive more constructive input. Another approach is positive confrontation. When they present obstacles, respond with, "That is an interesting perspective. How would you suggest overcoming that challenge?" This shifts the dynamic from criticism to problem solving. Epictetus wisely noted, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." However, listening does not mean absorbing all opinions equally. Discern between valuable feedback and mere negativity. Continue painting your life canvas with the colors that resonate with your vision, not the muted tones suggested by naysayers. Lesson number 4. The victim. Life can be viewed as a chess game where each player has identical pieces and opportunities. The victim, however, blames every loss on external factors. The board is unfair, the opponent privileged, the rules rigged against them. The victim lives in a narrative where they are perpetually helpless, acted upon by forces beyond their control. Their language reveals this mindset: "I cannot advance in my career because my boss dislikes me. I cannot improve my health because of my genetics. I cannot find happiness because of my past." It is important to distinguish genuine hardship from a victim mentality. Many people face real challenges and systemic barriers. The victim we describe uses these as permanent excuses, refusing any personal responsibility or agency. Your interactions with victims can be draining. You might spend hours listening to a friend blame their string of failed relationships entirely on their partners, never considering their own patterns or choices. Over time, this perspective can seep into your thinking, subtly encouraging you to abdicate responsibility in your own life. The Stoic response to a victim mentality combines compassion with boundaries. Offer empathy without becoming their rescuer. Practice what might be called compassionate detachment, listening with kindness while refraining from reinforcing their helplessness. Marcus Aurelius offered guidance applicable to this situation: "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." When facing a victim mentality, resist adopting it yourself. Maintain your sense of agency and responsibility for your life. Remember, in the chess game of life, being perpetually in checkmate is often a choice, not an inevitability. Lesson number 5. The toxic positivist. While negativity can be draining, excessive positivity can be equally problematic. The toxic positivist dismisses genuine emotions with platitudes like "just be happy" or "good vibes only," creating an environment where authentic expression is suppressed. Imagine your life as a garden with both flowers and weeds. The toxic positivist insists on focusing exclusively on the blooms, denying the existence of thorns or pests. When you express concern about garden challenges, they respond, "Just focus on the flowers, do not let negativity into your garden." During difficult life transitions, such as job loss or relationship endings, the toxic positivist offers superficial comfort. Everything happens for a reason, or at least you have your health. These statements, while well-intentioned, invalidate your natural emotional responses and the complexity of human experience. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional suppression or forced positivity. In reality, it advocates for acknowledging emotions while not being controlled by them. The Stoics recognized that both pleasure and pain are part of the human experience. When dealing with toxic positivity, practice emotional granularity, the ability to identify and express nuanced feelings. If someone dismisses your concerns with "look on the bright side," respond with, "I appreciate your optimism, and I need to process these feelings as well. Both can coexist." Seneca observed, "True happiness is to understand our duties toward God and man, to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Notice the balance, understanding duties, which are not always pleasant, and enjoying the present moment. A healthy garden requires both sunshine and rain. Similarly, a well-lived life embraces the full spectrum of human emotion, finding wisdom in both joy and sorrow. Lesson number 6, the manipulator. Think of your life as a carefully crafted script. You know your character's motivations, relationships, and goals. The manipulator is the shadowy producer who subtly rewrites your story without your awareness, until you realize your narrative has veered from your intentions. Manipulators are masters of emotional and psychological maneuvering. They might use flattery to disarm you, guilt to control you, or selective information to mislead you. Their methods are often so subtle that you question your own perceptions rather than their motives. Consider a friend who consistently manages to have you pay for meals by saying, "You know, I have been struggling financially and you are doing so well, it would mean so much to me." Over time, you realize this pattern repeats regardless of their circumstances, leaving you feeling used rather than generous. Detecting manipulation requires vigilance. Notice patterns where you consistently feel guilty, confused, or obligated after interactions. Pay attention to inconsistencies between words and actions, and be aware of relationships that feel unbalanced in terms of giving and receiving. One effective strategy for handling manipulators is a technique called fogging. This involves acknowledging any truth in their statements while refusing to be moved by emotional coercion. If they say, "A true friend would help me with this," respond with, "Friendship is important, and I need to consider what works for me in this situation." Setting clear boundaries is essential. Practice direct communication. "I am not comfortable lending money, but I can help you explore financial resources." Maintain a calm tone while being firm in your position. Epictetus emphasized, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." The manipulator thrives on predictable reactions, manipulating your kindness, guilt, or desire for approval. By responding differently, you reclaim authorship of your life story. Lesson number 7, the time vampire. Imagine your daily routine as a symphony, each element contributing to a harmonious whole. The time vampire disrupts this balance, consuming your precious hours with trivial matters and leaving your important priorities unfulfilled. The time vampire may not be malicious. They might be the colleague who regularly interrupts your focused work with casual conversation, the friend who extends coffee meetings well beyond the scheduled time, or the family member who calls with non-urgent matters during your productive hours. While each interruption seems small, the cumulative effect is significant. Research suggests it takes an average of 23 minutes to refocus after an interruption. 5 brief interruptions can essentially eliminate 2 hours of productive time. Consider a coworker who frequently stops by your desk to discuss weekend plans or office gossip. Their visits seem harmless, yet by day's end, you have accomplished less than intended, creating stress and dissatisfaction. Stoicism emphasizes the finite nature of time. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He understood that guarding our time is essential for a well-lived life. Practical strategies for managing time vampires include setting clear boundaries. This might mean scheduling specific times for social interaction and making other periods interruption-free. Communicate these boundaries respectfully but firmly. The Pomodoro technique can be effective, working in focused intervals, typically 25 minutes with scheduled breaks. During these intervals, make it clear you are not available for interruption. For social time vampires, practice the art of the graceful exit. Predefine the duration of meetings or visits, and when that time arrives, conclude the interaction confidently. I have enjoyed our conversation and need to move on to my next commitment. Remember, saying no to time intrusions is saying yes to your priorities and purpose. Lesson number 8, the endless competitor. Life is not a zero-sum game, yet some people approach every interaction as a contest to be won. The endless competitor views your successes as their failures and your achievements as threats, rather than sources of inspiration. These individuals might respond to your good news with subtle undermining. If you share a promotion, they highlight the stress of increased responsibility. If you describe a fitness milestone, they mention someone who achieved more. Their conversations are peppered with comparisons, always positioning themselves above others. This competitive spirit extends beyond traditional arenas like work or sports into areas as varied as parenting, travel experiences, or even personal growth. Their need to win transforms potential collaborations into contests and friendships into rivalries. The impact of such relationships can be insidious. You might find yourself hesitant to share accomplishments, downplaying your successes, or even abandoning pursuits where they have claimed expertise. This diminishes your authentic expression and constrains your growth. Stoicism offers valuable perspective through its emphasis on virtue as the only true good. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. True competition is not with others, but with your previous self, striving for continuous improvement in character and conduct. When dealing with endless competitors, maintain focus on your own path. Celebrate their achievements genuinely without feeling diminished. If they attempt to transform your success into a competition, redirect with statements like, "I am focusing on my personal progress rather than comparisons." Remember that their competitive nature reflects their insecurities, not your worth. Your value is not determined by relative position, but by the virtue of your character and the integrity of your actions. Lesson number 9, the wisdom hoarder. Knowledge becomes wisdom when shared and applied. The wisdom hoarder accumulates information not for growth or contribution, but for superiority and control. They might be the colleague who withholds crucial information that would help team members succeed, or the mentor who provides just enough guidance to keep you dependent on their expertise. Wisdom hoarders often present themselves as authorities, using phrases like "trust me," "I know best," or "based on my extensive experience," to shut down questions or alternative perspectives. They may respond to inquiries with vague generalities rather than specific insights, preserving their position as the exclusive knowledge source. This behavior stems from insecurity rather than confidence. Truly wise individuals understand that sharing knowledge strengthens rather than diminishes their value. As Seneca observed, people learn while they teach. The wisdom hoarder fears becoming irrelevant if others possess their knowledge. The impact of these relationships can be significant. You might find your growth stunted, your curiosity discouraged, or your confidence undermined. The wisdom hoarder creates dependency rather than empowerment. Stoicism encourages us to pursue knowledge for its practical application in living virtuously, not as a means to elevate ourselves above others. Epictetus taught, "Do not just say you have read books. Show that through them you have learned to think better." When interacting with wisdom hoarders, maintain your intellectual autonomy. Seek multiple sources of information rather than relying exclusively on their guidance. Ask specific questions that require detailed responses rather than accepting vague pronouncements. Foster a personal commitment to knowledge sharing. As you learn and grow, freely offer insights to others, creating communities of mutual growth rather than hierarchies of controlled information. As we conclude our exploration of these 9 types of people that Stoicism warns us about, remember that awareness is the first step toward wisdom. Recognition of these patterns allows for thoughtful response rather than unconscious reaction. Equally important is self-reflection. We must honestly examine whether we sometimes embody these very types in our relationships with others. Do we occasionally slip into complaint or manipulation? Do we sometimes hoard wisdom or drain others' time? The Stoic path is not about perfection but progress. By mindfully choosing our companions and consciously shaping our own character, we move steadily toward the tranquility and virtue that the ancient Stoics recognized as the foundation of a well-lived life. In your daily interactions, observe both others and yourself with compassion and clarity. Set boundaries where needed. Cultivate relationships that elevate rather than diminish, and remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one. What relationships in your life currently deserve reconsideration? Which of these 9 types resonated most strongly with your experience? I invite you to share your reflections in the comments below as we continue this journey of growth together.